Hello everyone. In today's video, we are going to talk about the Educational Regulation 2020 for Diploma course in Pharmacy. We are going to talk about the Chapter 3, that is Practical Training. Chapter 3 includes the detailed information according to the Education Regulation 2020, how the practical training to be done, what is the period allocated to it, what are the conditions, what is the procedure to be followed before and after training, what are the requirements, what are the forms to be filled and how they are submitted, what is the role of apprentice trainee, what is the role of institution imparting the practical training, or what is the role of the institution where the training is being imparted. All these things we are going to see in practical training part. Now this chapter 3 of practical training includes period and other conditions for practical training. That means what is the minimum period for the practical training along with some of the conditions. Then second part includes procedure to be followed prior to the commencement of the training. That means before training, what is the procedure which is to be followed. And last is certificate of passing diploma in pharmacy part 3. That means after completing the training. So coming to first point from the practical training, it is period and other conditions for practical training. So this says that after appeared in the part 2 examination, after having appeared, not passed, after having appeared in part 2 examination of diploma in pharmacy held by a approved examining authority, whatever the state authority is approved for the examination, the candidate is eligible to undergo the practical training in one or more of the following institutions, such as hospital pharmacies, dispensaries run by central or state government, a pharmacy license for retail sale of drug under the Drug and Cosmetic Act Rule 1945, having the services of registered pharmacist, hospital and dispensary other than those specified in sub-regulation. So all these institutions are eligible for giving the practical training, which are recognized by Pharmacy Council of India, and the foremost condition is they should fulfill the Appendix C conditions of these Education Regulations 2020. So we'll see what is the now. Before going to Appendix C, this point we will cover. The second point, that is institutions referred in sub-regulation 1 shall be eligible to impart training. That means whatever the institutions we have seen just now, they are eligible to impart the training. But the condition is the number of working persons shall not exceed 4. That means 4 means one is registered pharmacist which is engaged in the work actually, one is the student pharmacist which is taking the training, and if there are more than one registered pharmacist for a particular institution which is mentioned, just now we discussed or just now we have seen, the number shall not exceed 2 for each additional registered pharmacist. That means total 4, and 2 can be the additional registered pharmacist along with the trainee and one main pharmacist. So this is the brief view of Appendix C. Now these are the conditions which are to be fulfilled by the institution to be recognized for giving practical training. Now who will decide that the institutes are the institutes who will recognize the institutes that they can impart the practical training? So it is again by the Pharmacy Council of India. Any institute who is willing to be recognized by the Pharmacy Council of India, this institution which is wishing to be recognized under Regulation 18, shall apply in writing to the secretary of PCI, and after the complete satisfactory observations or examining by the inspectors, they will give the recognition to such institutions. Now, this kind of recognized institutes, the first criteria is they should be able to provide, or they should be capable of providing the following requirements, that is staff, accommodation and equipments of the institutions concerned and its working. That means proper staff which is mentioned, then that can accommodate the trainee pharmacies, then equipments of the institution and its working. That should be satisfactory, and that institute shall timely permit the inspectors of Pharmacy Council of India to inspect the premises at any reasonable time when the working is proceeding. Then the next important is institute shall provide various things to the trainee pharmacists, such as they should provide the opportunity first, then after opportunity accommodation they should have proper apparatus or material or books for the references which can be used by the student pharmacist for undergoing the practical training. And this practical training shall not exceed this practical training should be of 500 hours, and it shall not exceed 4. Just now we have seen part 2 of first part of the chapter 3, that is practical training. The number shall not exceed 4. 1 registered pharmacist, 1 trainee and 2 additional registered pharmacists. So moving towards the next point, that is record keeping and table 3. The period and other conditions may he the same. Next point is record keeping and table 3. Now table 3 which you have seen earlier in our previous video, according to that table 3, which is designated for the practice, table 1 is for FY, table 2 is for SY, and table 3 includes various activities which are to be done by the trainee pharmacist, such as he should be able to learn and he should be able to practice the dispensing. Minimum 250 hours are allocated for specially dispensing. Then handling of prescription, patient counseling, inventory control procedures, stocking of drugs and medical devices. All these activities are the part of 500 hours of practical training. And the record keeping part includes keeping the records which are required by various legislative acts concerning the profession of pharmacy, working on the knowledge of keeping record, which includes like billing, and then drug, schedule X drugs, etc. Then the practical training shall not be less than 500 hours. So minimum of 3 months, should not be less than 3 months. Towards the next point of practical training is procedure to be followed prior to the commencement of the training. Now, as you all know, the practical training contract form for the pharmacist, hereinafter referred to as the contract form. Now, the format of this contract form is separately mentioned in the appendix, which we are going to cover in chapter 4. But just to give a brief on, I will explain you in short that triplicate practical training contract form is there. That triplicate contract training form is mentioned in appendix D of practical training part, which includes 5 sections. That form has 5 sections and the form is made in triplicate. What are the 5 sections? Now the section 1 is supposed to be filled by, or is supposed to be filled by, the head of the institutions imparting training. Now this institution or the academic institution wherein the student trainee is has completed part 1 and part 2, they will issue the triplicate practical training contract forms to the trainee. And the section 1 of that form, the head of the institution who is imparting the training, that is academic head of the institution, should fill the section 1. Then section 2 of this contract form is to be filled by the trainee, and section 3 of this contract form is to be filled by the apprentice master. Now what all details which are to be filled in section 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 we are going to see in appendix D in detail in chapter 4. Section 3 is to be filled by apprentice master or the head of institution who is agreeing to impart the training. So these are the section 3 which are to be filled prior to the commencement of the training, and this 4 and 5, what are they, we will see in next section. That is certificate of passing diploma in pharmacy part 3. That means after satisfactory completion of the training, the section 4 of the said contract form is to be filled by apprentice master or the head of the institution agreeing to impart the training, in which that apprentice master working on section 4 will provide the information about the student trainee that he or she had completed satisfactorily the training, and he has practiced all the activities which are mentioned in table 3, and also agrees that a registered pharmacist shall be assigned for guidance. Section is to be filled by the head of the institution party training, that means head of the institution. So the section 5 after completion of the training is to be section 3 and section 4. When it is received from apprentice master, it is again to be filled from the triplicate copies. 1 copy is kept with the academic institution and 2 copies are to be there with the trainee or with the apprentice master. So that 2 copies, when they will be received by apprentice master, that 2 copies information from the section 3 and section 4 is to be filled by the academic institution staff, and then after satisfactory completion, the section 5 of all the 3 copies are to be filled by academic institution, and thereafter they are handed over both the copies, like second copy and third copy is handed over to the trainee. And when all the 5 sections are completed, this contract form, which is complete in all the aspect, is regarded as a certificate of having successfully completed the course of diploma in pharmacy, specifically part 3. With this, we finish with the chapter 3, that is practical training, and stay tuned for our next video for the detailed appendixes which are to be covered in chapter 4 about the certificates, repeals and savings, and appendixes. Now appendixes will give you a complete knowledge about all the regulations appendix, and repeal and saving, that means what about the previous students who are supposed to give the examination, which are enrolled in under education regulation 1991 and provision of the certificate. Thank you.